We left the last session talking about God's plan for the believer. God's plan for the believer is not the endless circle of self-will driven by a diseased mind of faith. You know, the dog chasing his tail is a clear understanding for the believer. The dog chases after self-will, but who's chasing him? Is the dog chasing the tail, or is the tail chasing the dog? No one knows or even cares except the poor dog who has become interested in this strip of flesh that is always following him around. This strip of flesh is likened unto self-will. It has whipped him to do all sorts of things that he never intended to do. I mean, the person that has the self-will, you have, like the dog, a tail of flesh that just keeps coming back at you. In the mind, self-will is that tail, and it is good for nothing. Man wonders why the dog even has a tail. Believe it or not, that's a big study. What else would a dog have to entertain himself with? The beasts of the field use their tails to brush flies. Self-will is needed if they're going to stay alive. But of the dog, it is but a tail to wag. Does the believer need this type of spirit to help in life? This spirit has caused many believers everything they have in God. The tail of self-will is a giant flea catcher. All sorts of other leeches attach themselves to the spirit of mankind, and that everybody in human existence has or have or are using this spirit right now. You see, self-will causes us to come from our very incessance of life. A newborn can cry because of his anger. The will screams to be heard and to be answered. The believer, in strengthening the mind of faith, cannot allow this soft-witted child of self-will to control their actions and their thoughts. There's many reasons for this, but may I just suggest to you that when you come into opposition and you need the mind of faith to kick in so that a miracle will develop in the middle of the problem, you cannot have the filter of self-will and a soft-witted child inside of you that drives you to a certain opinion. You see, there is a sweet aroma of obedience, meekness, and gentleness that will seep out into all areas of the believer's life and bless you day by day. I'm going back to the dog. Does a dog control his tail? No. Habit has formed an opinion that the tail must be wagged. The believer breaks the spirit that lives in a diseased mind of faith by prayer, by fasting, and then by daily searching the heart. Tears of repentance drive that spirit from the mind of faith. Self-will hates for the individual to be right. Self-will hates to admit this. But in repentance, self-will is broken down. Then meekness, gentleness, and lowliness of the spirit begins to call the believer to strengthen the mind of faith. So the question that must be asked is, how can God lead except that the believer follow? To receive this is in itself a healing of the mind. To receive this is in itself a place where you begin to strengthen. Today, go forward. Push out those things. Ask yourself the question, am I too opinionated? Does it seem that there's a certain thing that jumps me and causes me to come forward? If you can receive this, you can begin a healing of the mind and a renewing of your mind of faith, and God can begin to bring you to a present-day place to where you will know that you know that you know that God is able to do it no matter what the problem. God bless you. See you next time.